Hello, welcome back to Math with Mr. Hengst. Today is going to be an addition to Unit 2, just a little more in depth. We're going to go over two main things in particular, that is ordering rational numbers and when you're given a number line and you need to place rational numbers on that number line, we're going to go over how to do that, such as when you get 3/4 and it tells you to place it on the number line. We're going to go over how to figure that out. Just an FYI, if you're struggling with simplifying fractions, if you're struggling with converting fractions to decimals to percents, all of that kind of stuff, you may want to go peep my last two videos on simplifying fractions and converting rational numbers. That will be very beneficial to know coming into this unit. And also, there's going to be a little bit of ordering positive and negative numbers, so if you forgot really what that's like, you may want to go to one of my previous videos from Unit 1 to go look over that as well, to better understand what we're about to do. So with all of that being said, let's get right into ordering rational numbers. Okay, so we're going to start with these three rational numbers, and we got one of each variation of rational numbers, right? We got a fraction, 3/4, we got 0.5 or 5/10, and we also got 30%. So if we're given these three numbers and we're asked to sort them least to greatest, right? What we're going to need to do is get these all in the same format, right? We need to get them all in either fractions, decimals, or percent so we can figure out how we're going to order these. Right now, you cannot just look at these and kind of just put them together. It doesn't really make sense. So what we're going to do, the easiest method that I always preach to my students is to turn everything to a decimal. Why do I do that? Because if we turn fraction to a decimal, that's one step. If we turn percent to a decimal, that's one step. Okay, so it just makes things a lot easier and a lot less work for us. With that being said, there is a lot of division doing this. So if we need to work on our division skills, that may be something we want to practice as we're heading into the end of Unit 2. So with that being said, let's go ahead and make these into decimals, right? So decimal for 3/4, we're turning a fraction to a decimal. The rule to turn a fraction to a decimal is divide the numerator by the denominator. To put it in simpler terms, we're dividing the top number by the bottom number, okay? So in doing that, we're gonna put 3 inside the house. Divide 3 divided by 4, right? 4 does not go into 3. Make sure you bring that decimal up. You need to know where that's at, okay? 4 goes into 30, 7 times, right? Subtract, we're left with 2. 4 goes into 20, 5 times. So 3/4 as a decimal is 0.75 or 75 hundredths. So I'm going to just write that right below it. I'm going to do it right here. So just so I remember, 0.75. Okay? 5/10. This is already in a decimal form, so we don't need to do anything else to this. We can just drop it down, rewrite it, right? Okay? And 30%. How do we get from a percent to a decimal? Right? We divide by 100, okay? So 300 or 30 divided by 100. 100 does not go into 30, so I'm gonna put a 0 here and make sure I don't forget about my decimal. Okay, 100 goes into 300 3 times, and we're done dividing. Okay? So 30 as a decimal would be 3/10. Okay, so 30 as a decimal is 3/10, 0.3. Okay, now we can work with this. We can work with this and order these. But you're going to need to be able to understand place value. Big thing from 5th grade that you went over all year. It's carrying on to 6th grade, right? If you need to, a good strategy is to line these numbers up. So I know my board is kind of a mess right now, but just bear with me, right? So I have these all labeled. I'm gonna rewrite them vertically. In any gaps I see, I'm gonna fill it in with a 0 so we don't get confused and think, oh, this is 0, this is a 3. 3 is less than 75. In this case, it is the smallest number, but in some cases that will not be the case. Okay, so our smallest number, right? They all have the same, the ones place, all the same. So we're going to go to the 10th place. Smallest number is 0.30, right? So this is going to be our first number. Next smallest is 5. This would be our second number. And then we're left with this, so third number. So if we were rewriting, if we're going to rewrite these numbers from least to greatest, we would write 30%, 5/10, 3/4. Okay, we just did that. Just to review, we did that by turning everything into a decimal first. Okay, we stacked them so we could get a better view of the place value and where the numbers are at. Okay, and then we just reorganized them. We looked at the place value, the ones, the tenths, the hundreds, right? And we put them from least to greatest. So that's how we're going to do ordering numbers. I'm going to do another example of this, and I'm going to throw in maybe some more difficult rational numbers, and I'm going to throw in some negatives so we can see how that works out. Here is our new set of rational numbers. We got 1 and 5/10, negative 4/5, negative 2%, and 18/9. Okay, so what was the strategy we used to order them? Because we can't just look at these and figure it out. We can't say, oh, 1.5, this is a smaller number than 2, so we're gonna, no, we can't do that, okay? We need to turn these into decimals, right? So luckily for us, 1.5 already in decimal, so we don't have to do nothing with that. 4/5, we have a fraction, and it's a negative 4/5, so we cannot forget about the negative. So I may actually just put my negative here so I don't forget about it. Okay, but then we got 4/5 as a fraction. We need to make the fraction a decimal. How do we do that? We do the numerator divided by denominator, or top divided by bottom. So 4 goes inside the house, 5 goes outside, 5 cannot go into 4. I put a 0, add my decimal. Make sure I bring it up so I know where it's at. Can't forget about him, right? So 5 goes into 40, 8 times. Subtract that 40, and we are left with nothing, so we are done dividing. So negative 4/5 is the same as negative 8/10, or negative 0.8. Right? Negative 2%. I'm going to drop my negative again because I'm not going to forget about him. Okay? Now we're going from percent to decimal. How do we do that? Divide by 100. We're dividing by 100. So we got 2. We got to divide him by 100. 100 cannot go into 2. Bring my decimal, bring him up. Can't forget about my friend. Okay? Bring a 0. 100 cannot go into 20. I got to keep going. 100 can go into 200 2 times. Subtract it. I get 0. I'm done. Okay? So to make negative 2 into percent, it is negative 0.02 or 0 or 2 hundredths, right? Negative 2 hundredths. Okay? Last one, we got 18/9. This one is positive, so I don't got to worry about it forgetting my negative. Okay? But we do have a fraction. How do we convert a fraction to a decimal? Top divided by bottom. Numerator divided by denominator. So 18 divided by 9, if you know your math facts, it is just 2. So we got positive 2. So now we need to order our numbers. Going back to unit 1, if you remember this, right? Negatives, the bigger the negative number, the bigger the number is, the lower the value, okay? The lesser the value. So when we're looking at our negatives, if I'm just going to line my negatives up first because don't need to look at nothing else. Okay? The bigger number, right, where we're going least to greatest again, the bigger number is 8. Okay? And since these are negatives, 8 is going to be my smallest number because it is further to the left on my number line. So 8/10 or negative 4/5 is actually going to come first, and then my negative 2% is going to be second. Okay, so if I'm reordering, I'm going to do negative 4/5, comma 2%, And now we're dealing with our positives. We got 1.5, 1 and 5 tenths, and we got 2. We know that 1.5, 1 and 5 tenths is the smaller number. So we're going to go ahead and put 1.5, which leaves us with our biggest, our greatest value number is going to be 18/9. Okay? So this is how we're going to order rational numbers. I really highly suggest getting those operations, converting fractions to decimals and converting percents to decimals. We really got to get that down to be able to even start attempting to do this, right? So if that is something you're struggling with, make sure you refer back to my last video on Unit 2, converting rational numbers, right? Okay, so this is where I'm going to end it with ordering these numbers, and we're going to get to a number line. What does that look like? How am I going to place fractions on a number line? So that's what's going to be next. All right, so here's my short little number line. I'm going to go over a little bit of a review, think about fractions, and I'm going to relate it back to something maybe we can relate to in real life, right? Because that makes things like this make a lot more sense. So let's think about this as a phone battery. We're going to be working with percents for now, and I'll be doing fractions as well. We're going to do both of that. Okay, so say your phone battery has no charge. It is dead. It is at 0% battery life, right? We got 0% battery. We need to grab our charger for that one. All right, so we charge it all the way. It can't be charged anymore. What does it say at the top? We're at 100%. So let's start there. Now, in the middle of all of this, what is our battery? If our battery is halfway charged, it is 50%. And just like that keyword I said, half of it, 1/2 as a fraction, half of it is 50%. Okay? If you're confused on how this is 1/2, right? There are two pieces, right? There's two pieces of which is why I got my denominator as 2, right? However many pieces it's cut into, that's what your denominator is going to be. So now I'm going to put halfway between 0 and 1/2, and halfway between 1/2 and 1, right? So halfway between this, now we got 4 pieces. So I'm going to start off with my denominator as 4, because both of these pieces, this number line is now cut into 4 pieces. All right, 0, 1/4. This is one piece of our number line that's divided in 4 pieces, right? Right, this would happen to be, if we counted by fourths, it'd be 2/4, but when you simplify, divide by 2, it converts to 1/2. Okay, next one, so if this is 1/4, 2/4, this is 3/4, and then 4/4 would be a whole. So how do we get our percentage if we don't kind of know, we can't relate to real life, like, oh, I don't know what's halfway between here, right? Turn our fraction to a decimal, turn it to a percent. So I'll do 4 divided by 1, or sorry, 1 divided by 4, look at me messing up. 1 divided by 4, 4 goes into 1 0 times, 4 can go into 10 twice for 8, and then 4 can go into 25 times, okay? So 1/4 as a decimal would be 0.25. When we multiply by 100, we get 25%. Okay, I'm not going to show the work on here just for the purpose of this time, and we're not here forever. So right, 3 divided by 4 would be 0.75. When we multiply that by 100 to get it a percent, it would be 75%. Okay, these are benchmark fractions that we should kind of memorize these, because we're going to see 1/4, 1/2, 3/4 a lot. We're going to see them a lot, so we're going to need to know what their percentage is and what that decimal would look like as well. Speaking of benchmark fractions, I'm going to show you one more benchmark fraction that we should know and maybe try to memorize, because these are kind of trickier fractions that will kind of confuse us, right? And I'll show you why they're a little bit confusing. So we got our number line split into 3 pieces. So this is, the denominator is going to be 3. This is 1 piece, 2 piece, and then 3/3 would simplify to 1, right? The reason why these are tricky is whenever we divide 1 divided by 3, I hope you can see this, I know it's a little bit small, okay? So 1 divided by 3 is 0. Bring up the decimal. 3 goes into 10 3 times, we're left with 1. 3 goes into 10 3 times, we're left with 1. 3 goes into 10 3 times, we're left with 1. And I'm going to stop because it's not going to stop. It's going to be 0.33333333 repeating. It's not going to stop. The reason this is a little confusing, because if we break this down a little bit, right, we know it's never going to stop. And I'm going to add one more 3 for this purpose. And I'm going to rewrite this actually so you can get a better view, because I really need you to see what's going on here to understand it. If we know that 1/3 is equal to this, to 0.33 repeating, when we make our percentage, right, our percentage is going to end up being 33.333, right? It's going to keep going. You gotta recognize that this percentage, that 0.333, that division we just did, it's repeating. This is the same as 1/3. So when I'm writing my percent, it's 33 and 1/3, right? So right here is going to be 33 and 1/3%. Okay, same thing with 2/3. You're going to get it repeating, but it's going to be with 6s this time. Okay, so we're going to have 66% and 2/3. Why 2/3? Because that 6 is still repeating. You did 2 divided by 3 and you get that repeating 6, right? So we can't just take the rest of the decimal off the percent, right? We can't just delete it and say it's 66 and 33%, because that's not accurate. Okay, so these are benchmark fractions. 1/3 is equal to 33 and 1/3%. 2/3 is equal to 66 and 2/3%. Okay, now I'm going to get into how to place numbers on a number line with this kind of strategy. Let's look at this number line. Now, how many pieces does it split into? It's split into, and remember, it's pieces, not lines. It's not split into 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, right? It's split into 1 piece, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and label this with my fractions. 4/5, right? 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 1/2. Okay? When we bring these to percentages, I would highly suggest when you are asked to place a rational number on a number line to do this strategy, right? So I'm going to write my fractions on bottom and I'm writing my percents on top. Okay? When you do numerator divided by denominator to get a decimal and then multiply it by 100, these are the percentages you'll get. You'll get 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and then that 100%. Okay, now I'm going to write this in a different color. Now we're given a number. Now let's say we're given 1/2. We're given 1/2. I'm going to write it up here. And it says place 1/2 on the number line that we have right here. We need to figure out, how can we do this? How can we put it? We need to make it a decimal or something, right? Because our denominators are 5. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 2. You get 0.5. Okay? My decimal is 0.5 and my percentage, when you multiply that by 100, is 50%. Okay, so where would 50% fall on here? In the middle of 40 and 60, right? So my 1/2 goes right here. So that is how you do it. And we'll do another example. Let's do our benchmark fraction we just learned, right? We just learned 1/3. You know 1/3, its percentage is 33 and 1/3%. That would fall between, you need to look which numbers it fall between. It'd fall between 20 and 40%. So 1/3 would go here, and you can label again. 2/3, right, is now 66 and 2/3%. That falls between 60 and 80, and if you want to do it accurately, it's probably not dead in the middle, it's probably a little closer to 60, right? So 2/3. Right? I hope this is making sense, right? So what we're doing is I'm labeling my fractions, my percents, And if you want, again, just like how we're converting everything to decimals, you can put decimals on top. For me, percentages just make sense, right? They just make sense to me. If this full number line is filled up, I'm at 100%. Okay, it just makes more sense to me. But whatever works best for you, I'm not the learner, I'm the teacher, right? Whatever works with your learning style, go ahead and do that. Okay, so again, we're going to label. You take the number they're trying to give you, most likely will be a fraction, sometimes it'll be a decimal, and you can use this strategy as well. You could convert it to your percent or your decimal and place it where it belongs given what you have, right? This will wrap up Unit 2. Okay, so going over Unit 2, right, from the last video and today's video. Unit 2 consists of taking fractions, percents, decimals, converting them into their different forms, their equivalent forms, right? Okay, so that's the first part. That's a big part of Unit 2. We need to know how to do that if we want to be successful in this unit, okay? You need to know that before you do anything we just did in this video. Okay, the second part is what we just went over in this video, right? Ordering the rational numbers, putting rational numbers on a number line, okay? Dealing with those negatives that are thrown in there, which goes back to Unit 1, okay? So if you want to review for Unit 2, feel free to come back to this video, go back to my last video, go back to the video simplifying fractions, because that also plays a factor in this, right? Because sometimes if you had a question that's like 20 over 100, right? You may not want to deal with big numbers like that. You want to, get them to their smallest form, their simplest form, okay? So feel free to go over those videos when you're studying. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below and I will get to them as soon as possible. Use this as your resource, use my channel as a resource, and I would love to help any way I can. Thank you for watching this video and I can't wait to see you in Unit 3.